Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. I have another request today, Hellslayer Decapitator Axe. If you have a specific request for an item, feel free to drop it down in the comments below. I have tons and tons of unique items to go over because I plan to do every single one, but I see absolutely no reason why I can't do some requests for specific items that you would like. This one in particular was requested by one of my regulars, and he said that he has an ethereal version with a Zod waiting for it, and he wants to know whether it's worth using. So I guess we're going to go over this item together, and we're going to find out what the Hellslayer Decapitator Axe is good for. Now, the Hellslayer Decapitator Axe does have some interesting effects. Most notably is a lot of based on character level things. So we've got quite a few based on character level effects, which usually means when you have something like this, the higher level your character, the stronger the item. And just in general, probably you want to use it on a higher level character rather than a lower level one. But because it is a level 66 item, it is relatively low on the item scale. So you could use this potentially when it's a lot weaker. So let's go over the item together, and we'll talk about the effects on this particular item. So right off the bat, we have a damage on the non-ethereal version of 98 to 680. And the first thing you'll probably notice there is that it's a pretty massive variance in the damage. While the top end is extremely high, the bottom end is extremely low, and that means that our average is probably somewhere in between. If you guys have never done an average, you pretty much just take the low number and you add it to the top number, and then you divide by the number of numbers that you added into the equation, which is 2, and you end up with an average damage of 389. Which is a lot lower than the top end of 680. And as far as the ethereal version goes, we have a more of a variance there. So we got 146 to 1018, which is pretty massive. And let's go ahead and we'll do that one too. So 146 plus 1018 divided by 2. So we're looking at an average damage of 582 on the Hellslayer Decapitator Axe. Not terrible. And we're going to go ahead and test these out, shall we? Now, because the ethereal version is not indestructible, and it does not have a repairs durability mod, if you are going to use it, you are going to have to put a Zod rune in there. So this is important. And it will raise the level of this item to level 69, which is a little bit higher than the base of 66. So do keep that in mind. And you can plop your rune down in there, and it will make it indestructible, which will effectively make it a usable item for everybody. Now, what could you use this item for in its ethereal form not Zodded? The only thing that I can think of off the top of my head is a Blade Fury Assassin, but Blade Fury Assassins get a huge penalty to using two-handed weapons, which makes it not really that great. You'd probably be better off with something like Death. I can't really think of anything else right off the top of my head that this would work good for in a ethereal state. So it would probably need to be Zodded. So if we move on, we've got a 10% chance to cast level 20 Fireball on striking. Or sorry, on attack, not striking. And this is important because the difference between striking and attack, striking means you actually have to connect. You have to actually hit the target, you have to actually do damage. Whereas on attack just simply means that when you initiate an attack of any kind, you will have one come out, which is very nice. Now, this unfortunately will not work with Whirlwind, which is very sad. If we take this big giant monster axe out here with a Whirlwind Barbarian and we go and we play around in Frigid Highlands, you will see that no fireballs will come out. However, if we are to switch over to something like Concentrate, there you go. We have a fireball right off the bat. And so that's some nice damage on this. The Dust Shroud. Dusk Adherent. Dark Adherent. It's part of the Disciple set. I actually went over that one time before in a video. So let's move on to the next piece of kit on this thing, which is 100% enhanced damage. So this item has just a flat enhanced damage of 100%, which isn't that great, but it also has a per character level enhanced damage. So there's no variance on the enhanced damage that it gives you, and there's really no variance on the enhanced damage from the by level that it gives you either, since it's literally by level. So if you are level 99, you'll have the highest amount, and if you're level 66, you'll have the lowest amount. But it's a pretty nice bonus. And so altogether, with the 100% that's on the weapon, combined with the 297% that's on the character level, if you were level 99, you would have a total of 400. Roughly 397%. You could round it up to 400%. So almost 400% enhanced damage on this weapon, which is why the ethereal version is just so powerful, because the ethereal version also gets the 50% enhanced bonus to its base before the 400% calculates in. On top of that, we get 150 to 250 fire damage, which is nice. Just a flat extra amount of fire damage added on top. And then we get character level vitality and character level strength, both of which are 0.5 per level, which means that at level 66, when you would utilize this, that would be 66 times 0.5, which of course would be 33. So you would be getting 33 strength and 33 vitality from this, which means that it's also giving you a damage bonus from that strength. And it's giving you a nice vitality bonus, so you get more health, more stamina, which is also nice to have. And of course, as you level up, you'll get a little bit more vitality, a little bit more strength, and it's not bad. And then it also gives you another 25 life on top of the vitality, which of course is very, very nice. And one of the big downsides of this, though, is that it's not a very fast weapon. Decapitator axes are relatively slow and do have some issues as far as their attack speed, so this probably would not be a good weapon for a shapeshifter druid, for instance. It's just too slow of a weapon. Whereas it probably would be a pretty good weapon for a whirlwind barbarian. However, you wouldn't get that nice fireball. And one thing I did forget to do was go over the damage of fireball. So it's giving you a level 20 fireball, and level 20 fireball is going to be a damage of 227 to 258. So basically an average damage somewhere in between of around like 240. And the interesting thing about fireball is it doesn't necessarily matter how much fire damage it does. What it really matters is the little micro stun that Fireball gives you. Now, the explosion radius on Fireball says it's only 1 yard, but it's actually about 4 in the missile code. And the interesting thing about Fireball is that even though it doesn't say that it does a stun, even though it doesn't clearly does not say so on the skill, when you have a fireball come out, it seems to apply sort of a faster hit recovery animation recovery. So the monster has to go through a recovery animation. And while that's not technically a stun, it works like a stun, like a little tiny micro stun. And it's actually really cool because it will actually save your life on occasion, especially since it's a radius of 4 yards, which is quite interesting. So, you know, you have two options here. You have the non-ethereal version, which has some pretty nice damage. And as you can see, I have 4,953 with Whirlwind. And then with the ethereal version, I'm at 7,269, which is still quite a lot. And as you can see, my HP goes up quite a lot. Let's go ahead and buff ourselves up real quick. And we'll take the axe off and put it back on. So we have currently 2,510, and when we take the axe off, we go down to 2,261. So roughly about 250 life, give or take. A little bit less than 250, but it's a pretty decent chunk of life. And then the strength bonus is actually nice too, because the required strength on this is only 189, and if you were to put on something like, for instance, a Mortal King's Soul Cage, Sacred Armor, which is 232, or if you were to throw on maybe like a a fortitude with in a sacred armor, which is actually a thing. There's a bunch of different things that you can make in sacred armors that are actually kind of nice because it's the really high defense, and if you already are rocking really high amounts of strength because of something like Hellslayer Decapitator Axe, which is beefing you up to a pretty massive strength number. You know, that's not a big deal. The strength is also giving you a small bonus in damage too. I can't remember the exact calculation, but each point of strength gives you a tiny boost in your actual like damage. It works as kind of like off weapon ED, so very similar to might. But it takes a lot of strength to get any real effect out of it, and I only bring it up because having 49 strength on your weapon means that your weapon is definitely going to be doing more damage than what it says. Because it functions as like an additional damage. Kind of like when you have like a weapon and it has like additional undead or additional demon damage, it kind of functions the same way, except additional strength functions as a flat damage to your physical damage, you know, on pretty much any monster that you hit, which is pretty cool. And I don't know, this axe is interesting. I feel like you could probably dish out like maybe even 10,000 or more damage if you had the right equipment. You know, if you were using a fortitude, I want to say a fortitude would be a good piece of equipment to go along with this because fortitude is really going to beef that up a little bit more. You could also add on a might merc, perhaps with a concentration pole arm, and utilizing fortitude, a might merc, concentration. I could see getting upwards of maybe 10,000 or more damage per hit, with even with just whirlwind, and as you can see, we're already with concentrate. We're already at 11,000 damage per hit. Berserk is 15,000, and I mean, just a extremely powerful little jank. The unfortunate side effect, though, of the fireball not working with whirlwind is a little sad. But you know, if you were a berserk barbarian, and this is kind of an interesting idea, is that when you berserk, you lose all your defense, right? Well, having a tiny little fireball come out to sort of micro stun the enemies can actually be helpful to sort of protect yourself from these kind of issues. So I don't know. Wow, that is a lot. I'll switch to my defensive mode. Defensive mode activate. If you guys watched my sword guard video, you know about my defensive mode. Defensive mode, defensive mode. Don't let them take you alive. Berserk is like the worst skill in the world to use in that situation. It really is the worst skill in the world to use in that situation. All my defense gone, and all these monsters trying to absolutely melee to me. Let's switch to Whirlwind. I keep my defense while I'm in Whirlwind, so a little bit less murdery. Terrible whirlwinding. I can do my dance of death. Hold on. No, that's not how you do the dance of death. Only I was using proper equipment. I have massive amounts of damage, but I don't have any crushing blow really. I don't have any open wounds. I'm not running any sort of more interesting effects. As you can see from my bar here, I've got Life of Mana Steel, I've got Magic Find, I've got increased attack speed and faster run walk and faster recovery, and cannot be frozen, but no actual, you know, like major effects as far as dishing out massive amounts of damage along with my physical. So you know, if I were built like this, I would probably want some crushing blow. I'd probably want some open wounds. I'd probably want some deadly strike, various things like that, which would enhance this damage quite considerably, especially when you consider that deadly strike is going to double the amount of damage that I'm putting out. So I would definitely probably want something like High Lord's Wrath, which has 37% deadly strike. That would probably be a good choice. And then, you know, I'd probably want maybe like Gore Riders instead of IK boots. Of course, this particular character is just wearing IK set. That's really the reason why he's not doing so well, which is fine. It's fine. Fine. I'm not really sure exactly what to think about the Decapitator axe. It definitely is an extremely high damage axe, let me say that much. Just ridiculously high damage. It seems to be built that way. If I had to like guess what the developers were thinking in their minds when they created this axe, the entire purpose of this has to be revolving around just a massive load of physical damage. And I can't think of any character in the game that would benefit more so from a massive amount of physical damage other than a barbarian who is using something like whirlwind, or a charge paladin who doesn't necessarily have to worry about the attack speed of his weapon. I could imagine a charge paladin using this as a temporary item until maybe they got themselves like a Breath of the Dying War Pike or something. But I mean, we're looking at close to 10,000 damage on the top end, which is pretty amazing. And it's going to hit really hard. I mean, if you account for the physical damage, and then not only the physical damage, but also take into account the extra fire damage that it gives you in the form of the added, so it gives you 150 to 250. Then it also gives you a fireball on top of that, which does a nice little AoE spread around for another 240. Added on top of the 250, so we're looking at 500 fire damage, plus massive amounts of physical damage, and then it also gives you a pretty nice chunk of life and strength. I'm kind of in awe of the purpose of this. The purpose of it really just seems to be to dish out an extremely high maximum damage. Kind of reminds me of my old captain in Lord of the Rings Online. I had a couple abilities that I would chain together, and if I was lucky, if the rolls were quite right, I could put out more damage than anybody else could put out in one single hit. But there was also a chance it could do next to nothing, which, you know, it was like it was a gamble. And that's kind of what this weapon seems like. It seems like you're gambling for that really, really high, massive damage hit. You know, if I'm using High Lord's Wrath, I got my crit chances in there, and maybe I'm using something. Let's just grab Concentrate real quick. Let's go play around in Frigid Highlands with Concentrate. So we're doing 11k with Concentrate. And you know what? Let's go ahead and get our health back up. And I can literally one-shot a lot of these monsters in hell difficulty. Granted, sometimes it doesn't quite roll as a one-shot, but I walk up to some of these monsters and I just hit them one time. As long as I hit, of course. I mean, I did half damage to the catapult, and then it took me like 3 more hits to finish it off, which kind of really proves the variance on this thing, because sometimes the variance is going to be low enough that it's not going to one-shot something, and then other times the variance is going to be high enough that it is. I mean, I'm certainly not having any issues here. And this is substandard equipment. I'm going to tell you the truth. Immortal Kings is a nice set, don't get me wrong, but if you're building a very specific way, Immortal Kings is probably not the set you're going to go with, because if you're using Immortal Kings, you probably want to use the entire set, and me swapping out the weapon for something else, I'm losing the entire rest of the set bonus on the Immortal Kings. So I'm losing like the entirety of why Immortal Kings is a good set, and that's a bad thing. Anyway, I think I've prattled on long enough with this particular item. This item can't be upgraded. It can be found in both ethereal and non-ethereal forms. You can obviously add a socket to it. The non-ethereal version, I feel like, is kind of a little lackluster, because if the goal of this weapon is to hit the highest max damage number possible, then the ethereal version is really the one that you want. Whereas the Hellslayer Decapitator non-ethereal version could be useful, because you could actually slot a shield rune in there. Because there are a lot of characters who probably would not use this because of its extremely slow speed. And you can't put a shield version in the ethereal version, so the non-ethereal version is the only one that you could potentially put a shield rune in to make faster. So I guess we can think about that. And last but not least, let's look up the treasure clash for this item, and we'll get a quick idea of where you can find one. So the Hellslayer Decapitator Axe is a Q level 71 treasure class 75 item, which means it's probably going to drop in most places in hell difficulty, from most monsters in hell difficulty. I wouldn't be too worried about it. There's not a lot of zones in Hell difficulty that are lower than level 75. And you can actually still find it in zones lower than 75 by 2 levels. So it would be like level 73 would kind of be like the lowest level. And in the level 73 zones, it would only be from elites. But chances are this item is going to drop just about anywhere in Hell difficulty for the most part, with very few exceptions. It should also drop in cows, Hell cows. I don't believe this will drop in Nightmare difficulty. It's too low. It's too low level in Nightmare difficulty. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when it's about a crazy max damage axe like Hellslayer. And keep watching.